What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Apex Uncut. We got episode 5 here, and we're actually joined by a really awesome guest today. We have John Larson, or you can call him J Beebs. He focuses on live designing and balancing the game of Apex Legends, so he's done a lot for you guys. I mean, everybody plays the game, right? So you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of go over what you do?
Yeah, hey guys. Thanks for all, or first of all, thanks for inviting me. I'm always eager to sort of interact with the community in any capacity, because I find Twitter quite limiting in the sort of conversations you can have.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was brought on, I guess, 7, 8 months ago now, so not an awful long time. This is actually my first role in the games industry, and part of the reason I was brought on is because I play the game a lot. Not sure how many hours exactly, but it's definitely like 3,000 plus hours since day one, nearly every day. I like to think I play at somewhat of a high level. Gotten pred back before there was masters, and then masters. Um, Kind of taking this season off a bit because work's been kind of crazy. But long story short, I deal mostly with live balance, which has to do with both live team and making sure the game is up and running, as well as responding to any sort of hot fixes when we release something like the bow and it's super strong, or like anything that needs an immediate change. I have a big say in, and then I also just um, am a member of the sort of discussions we have for both character and weapon meta when we're talking about what changes we want to make from season to season. So I sort of provide a good perspective from someone who's a both a player and a spectator of high level play, and then also keeping in mind the casual majority of our player base when talking about balancing decisions. So I can't go too deep into cheaters and dossers and all these things, mostly just because it's not my specialty. Um, but if that comes up, I'll say what I can about that. But yeah, happy to be here. Thanks.
Hey, yeah, man, we're super
Yeah,
happy to have you on.
I think this is by far going to be one of my favorite episodes because I think we have a very interesting opportunity here. A lot of the other people we've been able to bring on the show are personalities, content creators, whoever it may be, that a lot of the public gets the opportunity to interact with on their own if they choose to, right? Or you're you're a game dev, man. You open Twitter, it's just going to be 35 mentions of hate and then one dude asking you what your favorite chips is, like some dumb shit, right? So
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, yeah. So I think this is a really awesome opportunity to get some community questions in, some interesting questions from me and TFG, and just try to create a more friendly environment between game devs, players, org owners, whoever it may be. Maybe in the casual base, since we're asking some questions from there. I think this is just a much more healthy way of going about things and being more transparent with the community because that's one of the most important things that I think we're lacking right now as a community and as a dev team. Now, this has nothing to do with live balancing or what you don't work with, but I'd really like your thoughts, at least, on how you guys feel about how transparent you guys are. I feel like sometimes you guys are very good about being straightforward, and I feel like sometimes you guys are extraordinarily awful. Sometimes you guys are very slow, and sometimes you guys are extremely surprisingly fast. For example, the bow, you guys were pretty quick with that, but like certain things like Rev Octane or there's a couple other things that we'll get to bring up that we're taking baby steps.
Sure. Um, so I think a lot of it just in general day to day, like how much I want to engage with Twitter or Reddit or Twitch or whatever, is I mean we're human, and I think we can only be exposed to so much negativity sometimes. Like feedback is one thing, and constructive criticism is another thing. But it can wear on you a bit, and any content creator, streamer knows this as well.
Absolutely.
Like you know that you're good at the game and whatever else, and you got crazy followers, but there's always going to be people that are just taking shots. Um, and so that is discouraging a lot of time. And I think when you see people withdraw, either on the streamer side or the dev side, it can kind of boil down to that a lot of the time. Um, a lot of that time too is tricky to just kind of find the right forum to like communicate. Um, because we do have channels and people that we talk with regularly for content creators and streamers, and their feedback is valuable. I always say my door is open. Um, my DMs are open. Anything, I always tell people to send me clips of Silent Octanes, whatever. Like, I try to be as open as I can, but just understand that we are human, and we can't fix every problem, first of all, and sometimes we just need a break to step away, because if I'm not working on Apex, I'm playing Apex, I'm watching people play Apex. Like, Apex is all consuming, so it's good to sort of step back and not be on the clock 24/7.
What do you think the most productive way for the community, the pro players, content creators, the casuals? What do you think would be the most possible productive way for us and you guys to work more in tandem and in getting more information out? I think everyone on our side, at least, because it's impossible for us to judge your side. We're just not ever in your shoes. It's very rare a game dev becomes a pro player or a content creator. So that being said, what do you think would be the best way for us to have a better like flow of information, so that whether you're a casual, a pro player, whatever it may be, that we're getting your guys' opinions as you guys are like working through them, or hearing your guys' thoughts as we're complaining or whatever it may be? Because I think one of the biggest reasons right now that we see such a negative and honestly like rancid environment of just being toxic on Twitter and so many other ways is because while the Apex dev team is the most communicative of any game, they are. I think communicating the transparency of a lot of these situations will reduce the negativity, because understanding where you guys are at, understanding where we're at, and then having that all in the public, it like lays out good grounds for debate and like good points, good reasoning, and a lot of bad. But that still is better than us sitting here complaining and you sitting there like, these guys are assholes. We don't know what you're thinking, and you know what the assholes are thinking, and the nice people aren't saying anything. So it's like, what do you think in a perfect world, or something that maybe we could work on as a community to like have you guys, not you in specific, but just the Apex team, be a little bit more transparent with everyone? Yeah.
Well, I know I'm sort of shouting into the void here, but because I know what's going to farm the likes on Twitter is going to be that sort of inflammatory jump on the bandwagon, F this, F that. But when I do see a sort of well thought out, like reasoned argument of, this is frustrating to play against for this reason, and perhaps this is a way that can address that concern without straying from how the character feels or the weapon's identity, blah, blah, blah. I read that out and I think, that's a good idea. I'm going to forward that onto the team, and, who knows where it goes from there. Like, it's all a matter of just like how you approach giving the feedback is a big thing. Second of all, sort of being transparent of like how much we can delve into certain specifics and whatnot. A lot of time, the answer is we don't know hard and fast that a Caustic buff is coming to this date, or Wattson buff / nerf is coming at this date. We have to. We're constantly iterating and playtesting these ideas, and sometimes we just scratch. We thought something would work out, and we say, no, this isn't working. Back to the drawing board. And so sometimes when we mention that we have this change in mind or we're working on it, we don't want to promise anything at that time, because
that's totally understandable. Yeah.
And some changes are just inherently much meatier and bigger than others. Like if it's involving animation and audio, VFX, like that's gonna take a significant chunk of resources. And it's not as simple as just like adding more people.
Yeah.
You got to be strategic in how you sort of think about the roadmap of what's coming out at what time, and what we can communicate as something we know for sure we're looking to fix at this time, or whatever else.
All right. I got a big one. Jay. I think the biggest question of this one, and maybe I'm an idiot, maybe there's bigger ones, and we'll get across those later on, but I think the biggest question of this, and obviously I'm going to say it in a jokingly manner, but how do you guys manage to break the goddamn game every time a new season launches, and we got 250,000 people watching the category, and we can never play for the first 3 hours because something breaks? What's going on there, man? Because we got season 10 coming up, and I've talked about it openly on my stream and on the podcast before, that I believe this past split and the split before this one were the worst time Apex has had in its entire history, because of the DOSing and hacking situation. It was just the most unplayable portion in Apex's history, and that's why I think it's the worst. But with season 10 coming up, and I know things that the public doesn't know, and I also can't say, just to be straightforward with that, I really have extremely high hopes for season 10 being a much more positive gaming environment for all of us. So with that being said, what the fuck's going on, man? I'm trying to open season 10 and get to play right away with no game-breaking bugs. Talk to
Man,
me
me
through
too.
some of
I
those,
mean,
because you're on
I
the
worked
live
on the
team, man.
yeah,
You
I'm on the
gotta
live team.
panic when that shit fails.
Sure. Yeah, shout out to my boss Chin, who is always putting out fires left and right on release weeks.
Let's go,
Um,
Chid.
but I will say, like, in a nutshell, games are hard. And as games grow, the sort of problems that can arise because of that growth sort of grow exponentially as well. Um, it's rare that you can have a completely seamless launch. Any patch, and anyone who works in development, games or anything else, uh, any patch can, unforeseen things can come up. We catch plenty of stuff in playtesting and in with QA, but there's no way of truly simulating the live game until, frankly, it is live.
It's live, yeah.
So it's we're not thrilled when hackers are able to do things or servers shut down or whatnot, and you get your code nets, whatever. Like,
It's hard
we're
to
not thrilled about
emulate all
that either.
that without it being live and all the players.
What's
Yeah,
the environment like when you do launch a new season?
And that shit goes crazy.
Shit! Yeah. What's the team like?
We do, honestly, it's pretty impressive seeing how quickly people are to sort of identify issues, jump on them, diagnose them, and then work on implementing the fix. There's a lot that's going on in the back end, and people are surprisingly keep their cool pretty well, because that was one of the things, as someone who was on the outside looking in, and someone who's now on the inside. Like, it's amazing. There are so many smart and talented people at their job at Respawn that are willing to help out. It just turns out that like, games are hard, guys. And I wish,
You
I
think,
think I saw this on Twitter somewhere, where, like, if you could take content creators and just, like, have them build a game for a year and be like, go make a video game. Oh my God, that would be some good TV. That would be some good TV.
That's funny. That's a good idea. Do you think playtesting with more pro players, more content creators, or just more people who are more active in the game could be potentially a more positive environment for finding some of these fixes that you guys can't perfectly like emulate in your current playtesting? Because from what I've heard, the playtesting that you're doing majority of the time, I know you guys do playtests with players, but majority of the time, I'm pretty sure it's internal. Correct me if I'm wrong, and if you're allowed to say I'm wrong, do it. And I think there's a big difference between someone playtesting with like over 7K hours than someone who's just a little bit more passionate than the next person, but they might not have even 2K hours, 1K hours in the game, but they're just extremely passionate about their project, right? And no one could ever take that from them. I just think that more playtesting is scary for any game dev, I believe, because it's just more probable that things leak. There's just so many things that go into it that are just like not fun to think about, I'd imagine, and there's more legalities to it, I'm sure, as well. However, I do think playtesting some of these seasons more often could huge for fixing a lot of these problems, such as like nerfing the bow before it comes out crazy, or Spitfire changes. There's so many things that I'm sure you've had to deal with that aren't fun, and I think playtesting with more of the experienced players could help, or is that just not realistic?
No, you're 100% right. I think one of our most valuable resources is those playtests where we bring content creators and pros in to test. Like, those are super valuable, 100%. A lot of the time, I think pros maybe suspect that, like, the feedback they give during those sessions will see the light of day, like, at day zero when that patch gets released. But a lot of the time, it's sort of already out the door, and we're looking at maybe just some final tunings or whatnot. But I mean, granted, there are tests where we're testing characters or weapons far out in the future, and any feedback there is valuable. So I'm not sure entirely how that works on how we recruit or screen people for that, but we're always happy and happy for playtest days when we have those with the pros. So
Yeah,
I
it
think
was more of like
100%
a
we'd like more of those.
yeah. That's what I was looking for. I was more looking for like a do you think that would be beneficial if we did more of them leading up to new launches? Because I personally think it would, but someone like you or any dev literally that works on the game is going to have a way bigger and better perspective than me on the outside who just sits there and complains for 3 hours while I have 500 viewers or whatever it may be. I just wanted to ask that. And cheers, hopeful for more common playtest right before season launches so that we can rack up 20 hours on it and see if the game falls apart even with 60 people, 20 people, whatever it may be. Who knows?
Yeah.
I wanted
I think a lot of those big issues are you're not even going to see in just a single playtest or a couple lobbies full of people. It's when you sort of
100%.
scale that up is when you get
The
unforeseen
craziness.
things that come out of the weeds. But yeah.
You're totally right. 100%. Got anything, TFG?
Yeah, I wanted to just go back a little bit. I know we're going to talk about a bunch of legends, probably weapons and stuff. But how did you get into EA? How did you get your job over there? I know you said you got in 9 months ago.
Gamer turned dev.
Yeah.
So you were kind of like in love with the game and then landed your job, right?
Yeah. It was
That's
a lot of right
pretty
place, right
awesome.
time. I saw actually Jason McCord. He just tweeted out about looking for a live balance designer, and he sort of pitched it as any comp players who are looking to sort of segue more into the dev world and look at a high level balance and have a deep understanding of the game in that sense. If you have some technical skills, some scripting skills, like we encourage you to apply. And granted, I've never played Apex competitively. I played a pretty high level, and I think I understand and am close with or sympathize with a lot of the feedback that pro players give. And so I just reached out to him on LinkedIn and sort of assembled my cover letter resume and sent that in, and I was lucky enough to start a conversation with them and got the ball rolling from there. So
That's pretty awesome. You make it
Yeah.
sound easy. Like
Yeah.
anybody who's
No,
just a
I've
high
been
ranked
very
player
lucky.
could go apply and just get that job. But
No, I'm very
I'm
lucky
sure
about
it's a hard job though, right? I mean,
Oh,
Zach kind of
fuck.
touched on it earlier with all of the comments and stuff you receive about certain legends, and there's probably some Fuse mains out there who absolutely hate you, right?
Not as much as the Caustic mains, but yeah,
The
there's
Caustic
Fuse
mains
out there.
No, custom mains right now are fucking bitching, bro. It's bad.
Really.
Oh, dude, it's bad, bro.
Well, let's talk
But the
about some
problem
legends.
is the problem with that one, and he can disagree with me if he wants, and I won't fucking care because he's wrong if he disagrees with me. Problem with Caustic, man, they have nerfed the damage on his barrels. Like God knows how many times they nerfed the damage. Like the problem with Caustic and the reason he's still viable in comp and the reason he's still viable in casual and this and that is has and never been because of the damage. It's the crowd control ability that he has. He
Yeah.
offers an ability that Wattson could just never right now, and that's why you're not seeing any Wattsons in competitive, and you're seeing a couple Caustics. Is because you can't lock down a building the same way you can with Wattson that you can Caustic. If you're an M&K player and you're dog shit, you're still one clipping in a Caustic gas if someone's stuck in it. I mean, just the crowd control and the slowness, and that is the best part of Caustic. And the Caustic mains don't realize that. They're just mad that their ult doesn't insta-kill someone. They're just sitting there bitching about it.
Well,
Shut up.
so in a lot of ways, I sympathize with you, and I knew we were talking about this when we were talking about Caustic. I said the gas offers so much utility, and as long as it has the sort of vision obstruction of any sort and the slow, first and foremost, like it will be very effective in a good player's hands. But what I didn't fully realize is, I guess, how important that gas damage is for people that maybe aren't as good as you or
As
even as
using
good
the
as me.
utility side of it, right?
Yeah, like I think gas doing damage is more important than I gave it credit for on that sort of first sweep. And so in thinking how to appease Caustic players, like that is something we think about, because I mean, believe me, and I think many pro players would agree, playing in a Caustic meta, watching a Caustic meta, is not fun for any party there. But how can we sort of bring some fun and give that fantasy back to the casual Caustic?
I think it's really a straightforward street. Now I'm not getting everyone's opinion on this. I'm literally just spitting my own dumbass opinion. I think it's a really straightforward street. I think you either remove the damage completely from it, give it heavy CC, which it has, which forces Caustic mains to realize, hey, I need people to play into this gas or else my kit is useless. Or you can do the other side of it and completely remove all of the crowd control from it and make it more of a Claymore type character, which these costuming seem to want it to be. And honestly, I don't think the comp scene would have too much of a problem if Caustic gas did zero. I don't know the proper word. It just only did damage. Like, I guess it would a tiny bit like fuck up your vision, but that's just because it's gas, just a very small bit. And it just had like 8 damage a tick, 9 damage a tick, but didn't slow you. It barely fucked up your vision. It doesn't take away aim assist. Things like that, I'd imagine a lot of people being okay with. And I don't know. I just think the idea of it even doing 5 damage or 4 damage or even 3 damage with the ability to crowd control just makes it completely unpushable. At a high level or a low level. It's very rare that even a bad player in gold doesn't win a gunfight, I'd imagine, when someone's slowed or stunned or whatever you guys referred to it as.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard for me to say as well. Because I try to in playtest.
Yeah.
I try to look at how a gold player plays Caustic. It's just that I don't tune into many gold player streams, right? Because I don't want to kill, like, we don't want to kill the play pattern. And I think if you took away the slow, people would ignore gas even more than they do now. Granted, I still treat Caustics pretty much the same at like my MMR than I did in the past, because like you said, they're so brutally effective at stalling out fights even with the slow. It's very scary. But when thinking about changes, we want to go for the low-hanging fruit first. If we cannot disrupt sort of play patterns for how a Caustic plays or how people play against Caustic, or just because resources are limited, like reworks are a lot of time. But if it comes to that, that is what it is, and we can address that. It's just something that I think we always have to be mindful of, and that I struggle with, and I'm not a pro by any means. It's just knowing that, like, even I'm in the 1% of players, and you're in the top, fraction of the top percent of players. And so we can talk about, who do you balance the game around? I think there's some happy middle ground there, but
so do I.
It's tricky.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. Now we're gonna hit the really big fish. Crazy motherfucker. Revenant. I'm gonna let you talk first before you hear his or my problems and anger ranting, because I'm sure you have too much to say about this. So
yeah, I
you got
just
the
actually
floor, bro. Go crazy.
I tuned into your stream right before this interview, so I saw that nice Rev10 game.
Oh yeah, you watched the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then you motherfucker had a blast watching that.
Yeah, no, I know. I play the game every day too, man. I play ranked. I fall victim to the Rev10.
I'm just listening. I'm gonna mute my mic.
I actually have, and this is a confession, don't hold this against me. I did this before Rev was cool or uncool, depending on how you think about it. But I got 6,000 kills on him back in the day, and have since, I think, reformed my ways. But no, just kidding. Rev is a cool character, is the thing. Like, the fantasy is cool, and the sort of goal of these last sweep of changes was to lean into that a bit more and give him a little more individual power, because he sucked individually, like in one-on-ones. He was size for fridge, and he didn't have fortified or anything. But he's a nuisance for many reasons, as I know most of us are aware, particularly in high-level play with coordinated Rev-tains. So I guess to summarize, before we talk a bit more about, like, what can we do, or what are we thinking about that, like, Revenant is, I think the design is okay. I think a lot of the frustration stem from a lack of feedback in understanding when a rev is in the area, and when ulted revs are near you, whether that be audio issues or just like feedback around where the totem is. So it's hard for teams that fall victim to it to sort of capitalize on a rev misplay. Oftentimes, if a team can capitalize on the rev misplay, it's a team that's not even involved in the fight that's camping the totem. So it feels very like shitty on the receiving end, 100%. Like that's not an unfounded feeling to have. Um, I think diagnosing why that feels shitty and like understanding the best ways to target that is sort of the path forward and the path that we're thinking about when we talk about like how to tweak Rev or Octane to make that less crazy.
All right, doubling back on what you said you wanted to give him a little bit more independent strength. I think is what you said, talking
Yeah.
about a previous patch, right? I lose my mind with this.
Just this most recent one where we gave him the increased climbing and the hitbox reduction.
So with that being said, do you think this is just thrown up in the air? Do you think there's any room for changing his ultimate to like limit to maybe just one teammate or maybe himself, but turning himself into like 2 lives, more of a juggernaut in his own death realm? Or do you think there's any light of day in just changing the way reworking specifically his ultimate ability? Because I think without a doubt, I think nerfing Octane, I think you could change his pad, I think you could do so many things. But I think the idea of Rev being so strong is, like you said, when it's coordinated, it's without a doubt, a lot of players will agree, probably you since you're a higher level player, it's the strongest thing in the game, undisputed, because of the ability to get away with it freely is just so common. Like, you can do a really stupid play and get away with it. Sometimes you get shit out of it. It's very rare that a random team shows up and capitalizes on you if you're semi-competent with where you're using Rev Toad. Being said, like, do you think there's well, I guess it's 2 questions. So one, what are you guys looking into changing? If you're allowed to say anything, obviously this is a no promises zone because it's just what you guys are considering. Are you guys considering anything at all? And then, fuck the audio problems. Audio problems are super, super hard to fix. So that's just kind of unrealistic to bring up. But I don't think that's the biggest problem with Rev Octane. I think the biggest problem, without a doubt, is the ability to have that scot-free life. I think it's a little too strong for 3 players working through, let's say, a Wraith portal. So many different things.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of thinking about it because I think, I see people say, oh, well, just the easy fix is just don't use jump pad or like make it so you can't use jump pad.
That's not it.
That's a very temporary band-aid. I think you could get around that with a lot of other mobility characters, both now or future. And then also you got to think about the buggy edge cases where I'm sure one of the first videos we'd see if we did that would be someone setting up a totem right next to a jump pad and people would just like hit jump pad and then hit totem like midair.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
So yeah, getting at the root of sort of the frustration of like risk versus reward of this ability, I think is where that frustration lies. And I think what we're looking at with the ultimate is like, yeah, how do you increase that risk? Because the reward is great, and maybe it's too strong. Maybe the fact that all 3 characters can go with full abilities, maybe that's too strong in a coordinated attack. And then what is the risk? Like you get sent back to the totem. You have 50 health still, so you oftentimes just immediately resend. So we can tune with that. We can tune with like the sort of visibility of the totem in the world, because right now it's.
Oh wow, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, right now, like it's just you can tuck it away in a room so easily. With stuff like Loba ult, when a Loba is ulting in the area because you see the FX.
Yeah.
When a Bloodhound scanning because you see the big scan. So there could be potential there. These are a couple of things we're exploring, but we are, I think, looking in the right spots for the ultimate, and even the tactical, I think, could be helped out a bit.
Yeah, I think I was on a different page when you just said what you said when I reacted. Oh wow, I thought you were thinking something else, but it just hit me right in the forehead when you said that. My massive ass fucking forehead. I think something we didn't look at. Have you ever played Valorant before?
No, not really.
I'm a
brain dead controller player.
There's a character called Sky in Valorant. She has a dog that she can take control of, and when you're in the dog, you can only see like 6 feet or so. Very limited vision, right?
Huh.
You can only see things like pretty much right in front of you type deal. I think that'd be a very interesting change if that was something you guys wanted to look into, like maybe near sight or changing the FOV so you can't see everything. Or maybe another fix would be, I think, God, dude, correct me if I'm wrong because I probably am wrong on this. I could have sworn a long time ago Revenant HP was 75.
I think it was. Yeah, at one point it was like 99. You would go back with 1 HP, and then I think it might have been 25 at one point.
No, I mean like the health that you have when you take totem. But if I'm wrong, I don't fucking care. I think that'd be something to look into. Maybe changing it so you don't have 100 health in the Rev form, maybe 75, maybe 50. I think 50 could be really good if you're like right now in the current state of Rev Octane. If you change it from 100 to 50, I think it'd be much more manageable for these teams to not get punished so hard by something like that. But also for the coordinated teams that are working really hard at taking out maybe one target or on the same page, they still can be rewarded because taking advantage of 150 health thrown at the same person, still very lethal, even any elo, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to
Yeah,
look
no,
at.
I think those are good ideas. Like, I noted them. I took note of them. I think, yeah, I think we 100% could toy with it. I don't think it's as egregiously busted as people make it out to be. I think a lot of the frustration does just stem from a lack of feedback and having silent reptanes appear in your head. But still stands. Audio issues aside, like, yeah, it's strong for the coordinator team, and I think we're looking at it in the right ways for resolving that.
I'm hopeful. All right, Tiff, you got anything? I'm gonna start reading through
Yeah.
some comments.
No, that's what I was gonna say. We got a lot of community response. This is by far the biggest response we've gotten for questions.
Surprise.
So we should jump into them early and just bang a lot of these out.
I think that
Sure.
would help a lot with the transparency thing I talked about earlier. Obviously, we're not gonna listen. Don't ask him a stupid fucking question or one that he can't answer because I'm gonna do my best to do the same.
Hey, well, if I ask anything stupid, just let me know.
I'll let you know, broski.
I mean, I got one right here about Gibraltar, and I'm sure it's
Yep.
just going to be a lot of people asking about their favorite characters and stuff, but,
Sure.
it's exciting for them to hear what you have to say about it. So this guy said, Gibraltar has been meta in competitive play for at least 7 months now. His dome is a must-have ability by most players. Any plans for possible changes on the character or something that could substitute him out?
Love that.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think about Gibby a lot because I love what Gibby brings to the game, and I love the bubble. I think it's like a really cool ability in how many ways it can shape fights and sort of influence engagements in like a very or a relatively agnostic way. So I guess if I'm trying to frame like 4 categories of character when we're thinking about balance, you have, and we can talk more about like stats and whatever else because we look at more than just stats, believe it or not. But we have high pick rate and low win rate. We have high pick rate, high win rate. We have low pick rate, high win rate, and low pick rate, low win rate. So Gibby falls in this sort of low pick rate, high win rate. I know it's a different story in comp. In comp, like Gibby's pick rate, I think in NA if it wasn't 100%, it was pretty
100%.
damn close. In EU, it was closer to like 80, but still, Gibby's a force. He's definitely well established in the meta, and he is used. I think right now he's 3rd or 4th highest pick rate in Diamond Plus ranked, behind Octane and Wraith, I think.
Bloodhound as well, probably.
Yeah, Bloodhound. Yeah. So Gibby, but what's tricky is that the pick rate is low. So like when we think we got to do a Gibby nerf, like it's a little scary because we don't want to tank that pick rate anymore for the majority of the player base. Like we all want pick rates to be relatively healthy. So the sort of question is like, how can we make him a sexier pick without incorporating like too much power? And I think with Gibby in particular, no one else in the roster right now at that level has the same sort of ability to, or the same versatility that the bubble offers when it comes to resetting from fights and its strength in late game for controlling like the battlefield with the bubble, and just buying time with the bubble.
Yeah.
So the answer there, without changing how the bubble feels altogether, it's hard. I don't know if there are changes we could do that sort of affect pro play and high level play more than they would casual play, but there are a couple things like.
I got some of those.
Okay. We can talk about those.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about them.
All right. So I think the biggest change that you could do, I be honest with me. Tell me if you guys have brought this up before or not. I think the biggest change you could do to not punish the casual base or the pick rate, because it's not as effective in lower level or lower elo, either or, is giving the dome a health bar, but giving it a high health bar. I'm talking like 1250 or 1500, or like, where like coordinated competitive environments it is possible to punish, right? Doing 1250 damage isn't something you can just do instantly, right? If you have 3 people coordinated shooting a bubble, it's still going to take a little bit of time. You're still going to be able to get like a bat off, maybe even a full reset, right? But you're going to have instances where someone throws a Gibraltar ult on your dome, and that 1250, whatever number, it's a hypothetical number. It could be 2K, right? 2K could be the number. Who knows? Someone Jibby ults your dome, like that bitch gonna be hurting, bruh. If someone's shooting it and Jibby ulting it, like that's probably gonna fall apart. And I think there's definitely some idea behind giving it a health bar that could be huge for competitive play, because a lot of times you're seeing some pretty dumb pushes in competitive play where people get away with it because of bubble, right?
Mhm.
But let's say you want to do a really dumb push, but you have to bubble outside. It's gonna get punished. There's 30 teams that can see that dome. 15. You get 2 teams to shoot at the same bubble. They're gonna rack up 2K damage within 6 seconds. So
Sure.
that being said, I definitely think there's some ability there to not affect the lower level, but heavily affect the higher level and give it more punish. So not so much free, like I have to pick this, because that play style of like that risky, like, oh, I'm gonna play from the outside in, or I'm gonna play edge with a Jibby dome because I can carve a spot, isn't as possible if that thing has a health bar, because people will just focus you.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. It has an idea we briefly talked about actually not too long ago, and I don't think the door is closed on that idea at all whatsoever.
Augers.
I think, yeah, I think there hasn't been a massive rush to like fix Gibby because
Don't
just
need
his
as
low,
needed as the rest.
his low pick rate, and when I think about comp, like a Gibby meta as an observer and I guess as a player of like ranked, uh, a Gibby meta is an easier pill to swallow or an easier meta to play with for a bit than a Bloodhound meta or Caustic meta or Red meta. In my speaking as a player here,
100%. Couldn't agree more.
yeah. But yeah, I like the idea. I think so. So it is sort of inherently like pattern changing if you take something that doesn't have any health and give it health. But in 90% of scenarios where you're not having like teams focusing a bubble, like yeah, it's probably is relatively safe as far as change that wouldn't affect casuals as much. I would just want to like think about something that could sort of complement that uh, to maybe give them a bit more selfish power or just make them a little sexier so that
Why don't you
people
just make the
can't
dome
ignore
a circle instead of a dome on the ground? Why don't you give it a full circle, so that, think of when you dome on like a hill, how you can get your feet shot? You can
yeah,
give it a little bit more power and like being a full fucking dome. There's nowhere that you can get shot from. You can play an ultimate high ground. You throw your dome in your feet, and they can't shoot up into it or arc up into it. That's
the
a
Gibby,
very
the Gibby egg.
subtle. That's a very very subtle buff for giving it like a health bar and making it more penetrable.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Moving on to another one. You said it yourself, so I'm glad you brought it up. Playing this Bloodhound meta is fucking miserable, and it's not fun to watch if you're a spectator. So, you guys made some changes. Not one single high elo or pro player thinks those changes are going to do anything, nor have they affected anything in competitive play or high elo, according to us. Now, we don't have the statistics and everything, so I'd love to hear what you have to say about that, the play rate, the pick weight, the run rate, the whole 9 yards after the nerf, let's say, and then
Can we
follow it up
clarify
with
what the nerf was real quick? Just so everybody knows.
1
yeah,
second on. You can do it. You know it better than me.
yeah. So we just took right now Bloodhound hits scan and it lasts for or used to last for 4 seconds, and now that reveal time is 3 seconds. So I will say I first said let's chop it in half, make it 2 seconds, and see what that does. In playtesting, that felt I felt it was okay, but I think a lot of people felt like it's too quick. It's for the size of the cone that it scans. 2 seconds was too quick to digest that information. When I see ideas about like only the Bloodhound should see the scan or shorten the range of the scan. I think only the Bloodhound seeing the scan is much more heavy-handed than it needs to be, and I think that hurts the sort of fantasy for talking as just like an everyday Bloodhound player. Like, I can feel helpful if I'm relatively new to the game, and I can come and I can use a character that helps scan. I mean, any tourney with content creators and people that don't play Apex, like you throw the noob on Bloodhound, and that's the role that
And
they
they
can
feel
play.
useful because they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you're hitting the hammer on the nail. I think you're right. I definitely think that I think you had it right. My suggestion, unironically, was even less. I would have said like a 1 second. I think if you don't want to do snapshots, right? So if you don't want to like scan and they like blink like where they are, I think if you guys don't want to do that, then I think you have to lower it down to like 2 seconds at most, because anything more than that is it's simply unpushable, right? Because you can't fake the scan at that point because of how much 3 seconds is valuable in Apex with the movement system and how much you can do with just 3 seconds in the game. So with that being said, I really, a lot of people in Halo don't think this is going to do anything. I think stats will say whatever they say, and I think you guys will have your opinions when you guys have enough time under it. The patch is fairly new. I really would be excited to see your thoughts on taking it away from like literal wall hacks and moving it more towards something where it snapshots like 3 times, like flash player here, flash player here, flash player here, something like that, where like they can kind of track where they're going, but they don't get there every movement. We're like something similar to that. 'Cause I think we can all confidently agree that right now that dude is on fucking crack. Like that dude is off the juice. He's too strong.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Bloodhounds, and in my time playing, right, the amount of the fact that fights like revolve so heavily around that ability is frustrating, and absolutely there's room for improvement there. I think in the snapshot thing, like I think that's a cool idea, but I was reminded by just a different designer that I forgot that back in the day when that was the Bloodhound scan, the visual clutter could be really bad in like close quarter engagements. If you scanned and you saw these orange figures sort of
And
plastered
they're just like
up
right in
close
front
on
of
the
you
view
and they
model,
strafed. Yeah.
yeah, like that was tough. So that would be like a more involved thing to pursue. Like it'd be harder than maybe the public thinks.
Yeah, maybe like an outline then, or instead of a snapshot, because that full body can be really cluttering. That guy's completely right. I didn't think about that at total value. I think there's ways around that though that you can get away with doing a snapshot where it's like maybe just shows you there's a player there, maybe not even show you what player it is, just an X on your screen or something, just like an outline, something super small. Because I think the ability to just have that extra information and have a whole fight revolve around that timer is ridiculous. I mean, I'm sure you see it in high elo and competitive play. Can't speak for the casuals because they probably don't. I think honestly, the truth is that at the casual level, they just don't care as much. But for the people that do watch how that are casuals or play at the highest level, like everyone understands that if another Bloodhound ults and you don't have ult, you just kind of have to go turtle. Like you're fucked, right? Right now, that's the case, and that's a little bit ridiculous. And then even when you Bloodhound ult and they Bloodhound ult, neither team can push each other. It's now stalemated because everyone has permanent information. And now that fight that was supposed to be an explosive fight has now gone 35 seconds and no one has even hit each other yet because you have to wait the Bloodhound cooldown out, right? Now, maybe there's some things to look into with changing his ult entirely, right? So that he doesn't get a booster refresh, like 4 second scans or whatever it may be. You can leave the scan exactly how it is right now, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, whatever your data shows, whatever you guys end up changing it to, or leaving it as, whatever it may be. But maybe changing his ult so he gets 1 extra scan and he can use it whenever he wants. So he can like scan, pop ult, he has 1 free scan whenever he wants to use it, instant, the whole 9 yards, right? Something like that. I don't know, but there's a lot to unfold there, and I think it's very easy to say that it's way too powerful, and we need to move away from this meta. It's lasted way too long. It's not fun for spectators. It's not fun for high elo. I'd really imagine in low elo, a lot of the stats have to deal with people not caring if they Bloodhound ult because they probably don't realize how punishing it is, and 2, for the ones that do, they're probably just like, fuck it, you know?
Yeah, I think I forget I don't know if it was game 1 or game 2 of the finals that ended like at 5-star in Frag East. and I just seen the amount of scans and like Gibby domes was just like I definitely clipped that and I definitely shared it with like character meta channel, and I was like,
see a scan that's like 39 player scan. And you're like, what the fuck? Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, I mean, it's something that I advocate for and bring up. So, um, will the Bloodhound meta exist for till the end of time, till the end of Apex? Like, no, I think we're looking in the right places there.
Keep it back with you, Jay. No one wanted to hear that. They wanted to hear we're gonna figure something out, hopefully sooner rather than later, because it's lasted for a while. But I don't know if you're capable of saying something like that, so we'll take it for what we can get.
Yep.
We could continue to talk about Legends, but I saw a good question about the Kraber, and I know we talked about it in another episode, kind of balancing potential weapons being in competitive play or not being in competitive play and just in casual play. Is that something you guys have discussed, and is that a possibility? If you could talk about it.
Yeah, we talked about the Kraber. I brought up the Kraber a couple times in weapons meetings, and in general, like in any esport, it's important to not have a disconnect between the players and the spectators. Like there should be some amount of recognizable gameplay between pro and the normal game. Granted, Apex is already, it already drifts far from that. You see, people that designate drop spots in comp, end games are crazy, and just the things that people can do with a Kraber in comp is much different than things people can do with a Kraber in live.
The pressure it adds, not even using the gun, it's just crazy.
Yeah. So we've talked. Well, what if we add a glint to the scope? And I think we fairly quickly came to the conclusion. Well, what issue is that actually solving? Because it's not fixing the comp issue. Because even if you can see, like, regardless of whether or not you can see the glint, if it has lethal potential with a headshot, like that's what the pro players will complain about, and that's what's arguably busted at that level. So we didn't really move forward like with that, at least at this point, because the sort of trade-off like didn't really solve the problem. So if the answer is
You guys are completely
if the
right.
answer is to remove Kraber from comp, I don't think that's something that like I have the power to make a decision on. We have our whole competitive department and team that I think is more in tune with sort of day-to-day comp health and environment. And if they came to us with a case of, hey, we should remove the Kraber from comp because we think it will be better for players and spectators, then that's something we would definitely seriously like look into more, because we have proven that we have made exceptions with stuff like the gold knockdown shield. But that's something you should harass Eric Hewitt and like Zach Conley on more, because that it would come from them if Kraber were to be removed from comp one day.
TFG doesn't know this, but you remember Poland? Do you know what I'm going to talk about right now?
Oh, this is the care packages, huh?
There was a bug, TFG, during Poland. Unironically, there was a massive game-breaking bug during Poland. Big surprise. World spawns weren't spawning. So we went through the whole fucking Poland tournament, and not one Kraber was in the entire tournament. One Kraber spawned in the entire tournament, and unironically, NRG's Sweet Dreams got it, of all people. And it was from a fucking dragon box. That was the only, and it was like the most peaceful time, I swear to God, not having it in the game. And that's when it kind of like caught this flame of like, yeah, that's kind of when it came around. And I really hope they do remove it strictly from competitive due to its lethality. I think they could easily replace it in competitive right now. You could literally just right now remove the Kraber from comp, put the EVA 8 in the box at its current state, and there you go. You're done. You're back to a 3 shotgun meta. A little bit more slower of a shotgun fight. It brings SMGs more into meta, and then right there, you're done.
But if we bring SMGs in the meta, I'll get crucified for bowing to controller players.
Oh yeah, listen, motherfucker, you're fucked either way.
Yeah, true.
You could do exactly what everyone says, and they'd still be like, "Why the fuck did you listen to us?" Like you're screwed either way.
You should know better.
Yeah. Another good question. What about a replay feature? Would it help reproduce game-breaking bugs, audio, no regs, the whole 9 yards? So a replay feature would be very difficult to build, I'd imagine.
like a kill cam, or like you
Just
go back and review your gameplay?
Yeah,
feature.
full
Like you
replay.
can just like League of Legends. Like you could literally just pull up your game, watch the whole motherfucker.
Yeah, that would be quite a undertaking from a dev side of things, and I'm not
Agreed.
sure the payoff warrants it, at least at this point. So I would not promise anything on that front.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. If it was easy to make, I think it'd be a wonderful idea because it would
Yeah.
make recreating some of these events so easy for you guys. But
Sure.
I don't really know. Let's see. I'm
Should
looking through some questions.
we can bring up Wattson and how
Yeah, I
strong she
was
is.
literally just gonna say, like, people,
Oh, Jesus
they're just
Christ, man.
replying the name Wattson. Like, they're not even asking questions. I just see Wattson left and right. So let's talk about Wattson.
Okay, so this was the take that everyone got from Twitter, was that we're nerfing Wattson and that Wattson is super strong, so we need to nerf her. And I think that was probably, you can snapshot some sort of thread from Klein, but what I think Klein was getting at the root of here, and what I can sort of give my 2 cents on as well, is this sort of difference between, or this discrepancy between user feedback and user behavior. And so feedback is the impressions of a character or weapon, and then behavior is the actual stats of how these things perform. And when there's a discrepancy there, that's when people say, "What the hell? Like, what, devs don't know what they're talking about." So Wattson as a character, she's not fun to use, but there's a lot of invisible power, as I think Klein has mentioned. And I think what he said, I mean, or looking at this quote, like he said, a change to Wattson won't be a straight up buff. Like, it will likely need to include a nerf so that we can ship it without warping the game. And I would agree with that. I think, and we can talk about this more, like low profile removal. That's the single biggest thing you can do for changing a character's stats, is removing damage multipliers, particularly with low profile, like the limb multiplier, like having a limb count as a body shot. Like, that's massive. That'll make, like, right now in arenas, BR, Lifeline, and Wattson, we're at the top just because of hitboxes and the multipliers going away. So we beefed out Lifeline a bit, made her hitbox match her like snow pants a little bit more, like made those bigger. And Wattson, when we make these changes, will inevitably, like, before the health of the game, most likely a hitbox change will accompany that. But we don't hate Wattson mains. Klein wanted to have a bit of fun in the patch notes. Everyone chill. Like, we wouldn't be so cheeky about it unless we had stuff in the works. Like, Wattson is a fan favorite, we know, and we are working right now on how do we sort of increase the fun factor of using Wattson, and how do we make her stronger? Because frankly, like, if you get let's say you get respawned as a Wattson in a game, you have to wait till next game before you can place a node because the cooldown's so freaking long.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of usability improvements we can do with node placing, and there's a lot of changes we can make with the ultimate, because I think there's this sort of fantasy, you know, in the trailers, you see Wattson slapping down the ult to defend the Gibby bombardment, or you want to feel the sort of shield regen or the shield economy more than you do in its current tuning. Like, we added the bit to her passive. I don't think that does anything. Like, I don't know. Everyone's freaking out about that, right? Like, cool. Might save a cell over the course of a fight. So, like, Wattson mains out there, we're working on it. I was playtesting Wattson just yesterday, and I was having a blast with some of the stuff that we were working on. So, like, we're working on it, but know that it will come with most likely a hitbox nerf. So just keep that in mind.
All right, another big massive one, and this would be genuinely, this would be huge if you could give us something on both of these. So I'll start with just one, and I'll get into the next one. Any update on cross progression? Can you give us anything on it? Anything?
Man, you and me both. I have no idea.
I have to ask for the casual community. They would kill me if I did it.
Sure. Yeah, I do not know what's going on.
Got nothing on that one?
Progression, so I can't Can't drop a bone
Figured,
there.
but you
Unfortunately.
got it. Nah, then don't do it. Not allowed. You're not allowed.
I saw a good question here. I've been playing Apex for about 4 months, and this is something that I've ran into a lot that's kind of gotten me killed. Will death boxes ever not be physical?
Oh man, like so, like they just
That's
wouldn't have
hard.
physics,
Yeah,
or,
like
or they.
say someone dies right in front of a door, and now you can't
Yeah,
leave that door because it's blocking you.
I think at this point that would be a pretty substantial change that I don't think is probably worth the risk in sort of barking up that tree. Because there is gameplay that surrounds sort of death boxes. Something kind of related to this fact, in regards to like shield swapping. Like this is before my time before I joined the team, but the sort of shield swapping gameplay I don't think was forecasted to be as like dominant as it is. Like shield swapping is part of the game. You kill someone and you thirst and you shield swap and you move on. Like it's part of the game. Um, that if we were to say like if we were to sort of take a stance on that and try to lean away from that or lean into it too much, it's sort of at this point very baked into the visceral feeling of Apex that I don't think we could touch that too much. So I kind of would put box physics in that same category. Like, would bolts travel through them? Can I travel through them? If they can, that seems weird that they're the only things in the world that behave that way. And we're not going to totally redo the assets or everything for it. So, yeah, I don't know.
Can we get a give me if possible, and I don't think it is, but I'm reaching here. Is it possible to give me a timeline on when you guys think you might have something substantial or structured when it comes to this rev team problem? Because it's been really bad for a while. It's starting to get listen, and I motherfucker, you play the game, so you know. There was a period where the diva was silent. And it wasn't just a period. It was a goddamn century, right? It was forever. It was like 11 months of like a gun literally just having a fucking suppressor when it doesn't exist in the game. And unironically being like one of the strongest guns in the game. So that being said, like, can we get any transparency on when we're gonna see a change to like Rev Tane in specific just being so ridiculously strong? Can you give us any timeline to work with, or is that just unrealistic?
Um, I can't give anything hard, but I will say like it is 100% my personal number one priority on my list is easing the pain points surrounding Reftane and easing those frustrations. So it's something I bring up. There's things I bring up with our audio guys every day. I do share the clips that I'm sent. I would love to be sent more. And when it comes to like balance things, uh, if it goes on and if there's no end in sight, um, we can hot fix things. We can put band-aids as we wait for longer term things. But
Is there
like,
any chance we see a change come launch season 10? Even a one, is there any chance that you guys have some sort of rework for this unbelievably abusable problem? Because you already know it's going to get abused just the same way in season 10, both splits, if we don't see some change, and that's fine because you guys aren't ready to make change, and you guys aren't ready to make change, right? But I think the being number one priority on your list and it being the number one priority on the high elo list and probably even on some of the casual people's list, um, can we see any changes? Hopefully before or come season 10. I mean that's a really big change and the biggest change for the season, judging just how. I mean, look at the Twitch statistics. I mean, 3 months ago we were averaging almost 100K viewers a month. This current month we're averaging around 33K. Now, obviously, there's very obvious reasons for that. Some of it being I mean, COVID restrictions are going up. People are going back to work. So many things, vaccines, so many things to the game is fucking dead because of hackers and it's impossible to play. The game is DDoS half the time. And that's slowly getting fixed. But a lot that goes into it. And I really hope that you guys can do something come season 10. Do you think that's a realistic goal for you guys to set or unrealistic?
um, so short answer is like most of season 10 at this point is pretty locked in place.
Finalized, yeah.
However, like part of my job being this live balance designer is that I do have the capabilities to act on something. So I cannot make any promises now, and a lot can change in a month or two. But like keep in mind that I have you guys in mind. Like I am here for you guys. I play the game every day too. I die to Revtains all the time as well. Like I see you. I think in general, like Respawn has this philosophy, which I agree with, because Respawn has this sort of purposeful and more methodical, slow approach to how they can shift the meta. And on the flip side of that would be to be very reactionary and just constantly listening to the feedback, maybe without as much the stats. So there is a middle ground here, but I do think it's important to sort of let things develop over time. I mean, and that's something that sort of COVID has opened my eyes to with lands, is seeing differences in like regional metas. That's made my job like that much more difficult to sort of
Oh,
understand
yeah.
how to weight these different things, because I'll have people whining about Caustic in one region and then complaining about Octane or Bloodhound in another region, and sort of seeing the trends of EU and NA and
They suck,
Asia.
bro.
I know, yeah. It's tricky. So, and if that's something like with Bloodhound, I still feel like deep down, this 1 second change and what's like what we have on deck in like coming down the pipe, I think we could see more shifts than you guys are thinking right now. But
All right,
we'll
that's
see.
awesome.
I'm ready to sort of act if need be.
This is a quicker question, a little bit easier one to pick out. I'll just go one by one. There's literally like 5 questions, but they're kind of like yes or no's. So just be quick with the answers. Could we potentially see ranked requirement increase?
I think so. I think that is it's low hanging fruit that could help. It's hard to know how much. But the flip side of that is being, you don't want to gate it too hard for just players or for the player that is level 15 right now and they can play ranked. If we then implemented that or changed that to 25 or 50 or whatever, like that would feel kind of weird. But as far as like changes to ranked, like that's definitely one of the more feasible ones.
Ranked locked behind 2FA or owning the battle pass or a phone number or whatever it may be. Is that a possibility? Is that something you guys looked into and crossed off, or?
I don't know the latest. I know a couple of those things. From what I've heard, I don't think like two-factor authentication works quite as well as some may believe it to be. Because
Good
you
to
can
know.
always spoof, like, and these cheaters and hackers will always find a way to spoof emails, phone numbers, addresses. Like, it's all fairly spoofable. But this is all things, and even the the whole Save Apex ranked movement, like that did. I was happy to see that. I definitely had to just like chill from Twitter for a bit after that, just because
The
got the
backlash.
pot boiling. But like, um, it did it. I will take that any day over a string of a bunch of stupid little tweets. Like,
Yeah, some stupid ignorant thread.
yeah. So
All right.
yeah,
All right.
there's action being taken there.
All right. That's good. Ranked inactivity decay. You guys looking into like DK? So like you can't just be some hard stuck Masters 10K fucking moron who just throws every game because they have nothing to lose. Are we looking into decay?
Yep. Like I said, or like can't make any promises, but it is something we are aware of and are looking into.
Are you guys looking into doing map selection for rank / rotation, or mimicking the ranked map to whatever the current competitive rotation is? So it's easier as a gateway, or it's just people feel more at home when queuing up ranked because they can go watch it and relate to it more, understand it more, be a little bit more directly involved.
Yeah.
Something you
Yeah, the multi-map rotation is something we've considered. I think there's pluses and minuses to it. I think a substantial drawback is just for people who don't play quite as much, like deeply familiarizing yourself with one map is a little bit easier. Or you would have cases where, I mean, when you have people like strategically farming RP on certain servers at certain times or whatnot, like you could also potentially see that in people farming RP on certain maps in rotation as opposed to others. So these are sort of the negatives of it, but yeah, the positives is that it could, keep it fresh and whatever else. So something we have thought about and are continuing to think about.
All right, I'm still reading. This is just one for you to have fun with while we try to find some better questions. What is it like working from home in what seems to be a more oriented industry?
Well, it's kind of funny because I was hired from home. Like I've never been in the office.
Touche.
I met some coworkers just a couple weekends ago. I was actually down in the LA area, kind of scoping it out. Um, and yeah, I'm excited. I think a lot of the design team is excited to get back in the office because there absolutely is something to be missed about the sort of water cooler talks and just passing in the hallways and whatnot. But man, at this point, like we're pretty well adjusted for better or for worse in work from home. So I don't know. I'm kind of excited to go back to the office. It'll feel like I'm starting a new job all over again.
Oh yeah, the energy, everything is different for sure. Any ideas on changing Revenant's flashbang? That cue is more visual clutter than anything in the game currently, and when it hits you, you literally get flash. I could go slow mo a clip from my literal last game, improve that. I'm sure you're very aware of it. You guys plan on changing anything with the way that shit registers?
Yeah, yeah, can't promise anything on that, but like we are aware that silence does much more than strictly silence, um, and so sort of weighing how good or bad that is something we've thought about in the character's design and the path forward for Rev.
I don't think you're on the competitive theme, as you told me that, but has anyone brought it up in the conversation of removing the kill feed for match point format or anything like that? I think that's a big conversation for the competitive heads. I think that's one of the best ways to make that less, because match point format isn't going anywhere. We all know that, but we also want to make it the most competitive environment we can. And simply put, it's just not competitive when the whole lobby knows it's you and you're one of 3 teams. It's just literally impossible to win. So has that been brought up? Is that getting anywhere? Is kill feed? Has that been crossed off? Where's that at? If you know.
Yeah, that would be a more competitive question. I don't think we'll ever see the kill feed disappear from the everyday game unless it was in some like
Oh god, no, not from the
hardcore
everyday game.
LTM. But
Just for match point.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, match point's a whole thing because there's so many ways you can approach that as a player or as a designer of match point. Like the CGE guys definitely shape how they want that format to be, like more than any of us designers within Respawn. So yeah, that's a question for them. I personally like could go sort of either way on it. I think there's some interesting gameplay that opens up, but at the same time, like you guys are playing for a chunk of change, a substantial chunk of change, like you make a living doing so. So like I 100% feel you and get the drawbacks there.
Since you're on the live team, thoughts on EVA 8?
EVA 8 is strong. Correct. It's
You do anything about that, or are we just gonna say it's strong and say good luck?
Yeah, the EVA 8 is actually one of those guns, sort of similar to what I thought was the Spitfire, where I was like, even before we buffed it, I was like, man, people are sleeping on this thing. This thing, you put a purple bolt and this thing goes hard. And then we buffed it, so we're saying, hey, use the freaking EVA 8, guys. Like, try out something other than a Mastiff, and see how it goes. So that one was something where we definitely made like a conscious decision of like,
we're about to flood it.
Let's shift the meta a bit. Let's see if people actually pick up this freaking gun and try to use it just to see a non-massive meta for a bit. But it feels strong.
You did it. Good job.
It feels strong.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah,
it's very much EVA 8 Legends out there. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see something
come in the future.
Yeah, in the future.
What legend do you think is grossly overlooked, just based off the statistics behind the scenes and stuff?
Oh, here we go.
I don't think anyone's grossly overlooked. I think the Wattson hate is sort of exaggerated. Like, I think there were a lot of factors that led to Wattson's pick rate declining in comp. I don't think it was strictly like there's cryptos and EMP kills Wattson ult. I think it was the zone readability. I think the fact that you craft bats. I think the fact that Gibby became prominent and Edge became such a reasonable play style. Multifaceted thing that allowed for Wattson to sort of fall out. But I still feel like even in her current state, I think she could be a niche off meta pick. I think even, and I think there's potential. I think there's a couple characters that are close. I don't know if they could replace a Gibby or if they could accompany a Gibby.
Talk about it. Who do you think is close?
I think Rampart's closer than people are giving credit.
What do you think is holding her back or not putting her forward? Because I know. I want to know.
The ult.
Yeah. Okay.
The ult
good.
is pretty underwhelming, at least at my level play and above. I don't know in many casual games how many people are just like shredding with Sheila, but the walls in a good Rampart stance. The walls are not bad at all. But I think the ult could definitely.
You're just pretty much down an entire ability if you're in a platinum or higher lobby. Yeah. I mean, look at Apex. I mean, if you look at the beginning of time of Apex until now, its biggest compliment is its movement, the way it feels, the way it moves. You put someone on a fucking Sheila with TTK in the game, you're just getting ripped off of that thing.
Yeah.
Especially because it's not a charge rifle. It's a fucking minigun, so it's not full accurate. It's pretty accurate, but like if you're going against someone with a scout or like a longbow, like you're probably gonna lose the fight.
Yeah,
you're just gonna get quad headed.
Yeah.
I think Rampart is really fucking close. I will agree. Yeah. I do agree. It's just the ultimate.
I think Bang too in a non Bloodhound rich meta.
Yes, I agree.
I think you could absolutely see Bang become more of a niche off meta pick. Her ult is like it's one of the strongest ults in the game, and then the smoke, now that it's nice and thick, like that's big for cutting off.
It's really fucking good. Unironically, I was talking with Albert Laley about this on stream with Nadia. I was playing with my full comp team ranked yesterday, and we were talking about how we think Bangalore's fucking insane. It's just because we're in a goddamn wall hack meta, you can't get away with it. I mean, Bangalore's one of the few characters that can offer longer stalling than Gibraltar or Caustic, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. You stall a whole Bangalore smoke, then another Bangalore smoke, then a Bang ult. It's way longer than Caustic's. So, I mean, there's a lot to be looked at there, but the Bloodhound meta just counters that too hard. It's just not realistic. I think you see it the most in the EU meta. I mean, look at fucking Shiv playing that shit all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, the risk is just not worth the reward. I criticize their team all the time for running Bangalore because while they can play a completely different playstyle and they do really good, that's awesome for them. But the one time they do get scanned through and they do get ripped, it's like you literally just costed yourself a game because of that off meta pick. And I feel like that's just something that would happen just so often if that came into meta right now with Bloodhound. You got anything, TFG?
I'm scrolling through right now.
You got anything you want to add that you've just taken from all these that you're like, clarify anything?
Actually, I guess I can touch on Horizon because I know Horizon is one of those ones where impressions have lined up with the stats for sure. Like Horizon was nerfed pretty substantially. Like let's see, she got a little up to the cooldown. She got the limited vertical speed. She got the limited horizontal speed, and then she got the cap to the amount of time she can spend up top. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people think, but I think it's a lot less fun. And like, there is a happy middle ground there, I think for sure. I in sort of thinking like, do we want to push this version live? I was sort of an advocate for saying, let's gut it somewhat, knowing that we can bring it back up. Because I know with Valk coming onto the scene, I think a lot of players migrated over to her, and then with Octane, the Octane changes, a lot of players. It was easy for a lot of players to migrate over to her, and I think I probably undervalued how much an effect that would have. So I think in a follow-up patch, you'll see some more fun return to that. But I don't think we'll see the same sort of squirreliness that we had like on release.
I got a good question here. How much time goes into balancing a legend before launch?
Oh fuck.
I don't know. It's hard to like quantify that. I think
probably
a lot of it depends. Like it varies a lot. But there is definitely a lot of like, so once you sort of had the design lock of the character where they like, and this is not too much my wheelhouse because I'm more focused on sort of the here and now of the live game. But once they locked down the design, um, there is a good, couple month window of just tuning values, tuning durations, turning intensity, tuning the slow, turning the and so that a lot of that is gathered through playtesting, and that's where a lot of the valuable like pro feedback comes into play. Is like with the I don't know if we did it for the bow, but like we knew the bow was going to be strong on launch, but we were okay with it release strong to get people to pick it up, to get people to familiarize themselves with it faster, because that gives us a much more reliable way of saying like, okay, we actually know the strength of this thing now because people are using it. When you have something like Fuse, where their Fuse release is weak, and we like sort of piecemeal buff Fuse, it's very hard to know
where he lies.
their actual strength until we swung too far in the other direction, and now Fuse is way too strong, and everyone's freaking out and pissed. That's kind of what happened with the Spitfire. It's I think kind of what happened with the Eva. So
you're totally right.
Yeah, there's a lot we can get in a couple months of tuning leading up to the release, but once it goes live, that's when it's truly like valuable feedback.
All right, this is a big question for me on behalf of the competitive community. What happens with the low pick rate legends like Crypto, for example? If you remember, a big part of nerfing Gibby a while ago was that he literally had like fucking 17 passives and was just way too strong. I mean, he had fast healing, a res pretty much just as fast as lifelines, but you had to pick him up instead of just sitting there. He has the whole 9 yards. You guys took a little bit away from him because he was just offering too much. Simply put, that was just the way it is. What about people like Crypto? I mean, Crypto offers a lot more than the average casual, and majority of competitive players realize. It's just how strong Bloodhound is and stupid fucking easy the character is that people like Crypto, who are insanely strong, probably way too strong, don't get the hate that they probably should. I mean, for example, you look back seasons ago, the Havoc was fucking ridiculous forever, but you didn't see it get abused till then, and then it was like the world was ending because of it, right? That's a great example of it. I think there's going to be something similar coming to Crypto. What do the stats say? What do you think about Crypto? I feel like personally he has too much. Oh,
Can you hear him? I think you're muted.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first. Crypto's completely fine.
Still muted.
You're still. Oh man, of course something goes wrong, bro.
The technical difficulties. He's got them
bro,
Corsairs.
There's just gonna be so many comments like, of course his mic breaks, just like the patches. Like, there's just gonna be all the dumb shit.
Hey, if we get those comments, though, shout out to them for watching this long, though. I'll give them that.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
I don't know what that was, but
welcome back.
It happens. So Crypto.
Yeah, Crypto is one that I'm very aware of like potential strength of Crypto in the right player, the right team's hands, and the pick rate is low, so it's one of those that we have to tread lightly on or tread carefully on. I think Crypto, more than many characters, like we're pretty okay with him being a sort of like niche off-meta pick, because in a fast-paced FPS shooter, like a lot of us are just like dumb lizard brain people that like shooting bad guys. And Crypto, for my taste, is like far too cerebral. Like I don't think you'll ever find me like grinding Crypto for a long time, just because you have to spend a lot of time in that drone. But I think when assessing like how to make him a bit sexier, I think streamlining the sort of flow between Crypto mode and drone mode, and maybe distributing that power in a more healthy way, so it's not quite as binary, would be a nice way of approaching that. So if we did that, we'd have to address the sort of peak power of people pushing off a Crypto EMP. But yeah, something to keep in mind, is something that we are definitely like actively working on.
Is there any possibility for you guys upping the ranked awards? I think ranked is extremely flawed. You said it earlier that it rewards playtime now and not skill. And I think you guys would be fucking stupid, in my competitive, stupid, ignorant personality. I think you guys would be fucking stupid to leave it your ranked playlist as, yeah, let's reward skill or let's reward playtime over skill, right? I don't think that makes sense personally to me. Maybe it makes sense to you guys. Personally, I don't care. Now, if you guys did end up changing it, if you did change it to where it rewards skill, and it's a much harder and grindy leaderboard, right? Where the people at the top are really fucking earning it, right? Even to be top 500, you're fucking earning it. Do you see rewards maybe changing, banners, anything you can get to like maybe even for comp? Maybe you've seen that conversation. Comp, like you got invited to Poland, you get a banner. You placed second or first or whatever in the championship, you can get a banner or a charm or something to something to signify, or like, what's the word I'm fucking looking for? You get the point. Something to show that like, yo, I did this, whatever it may be, right? You're in diamond or you're in platinum or you're a pred, like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple things at play there. I think, like, it's just like it's not as easy as just like getting an artist to like add a couple badges or add a couple banners or whatever. And B, like, player cards are a tricky thing in Apex because like so much of your identity sort of as a player is tied up in that banner, that player card. Like, I love getting into a lobby and people see my 20 bomb or they see the dev badge or they see whatever, they see my rank. But on the flip side, like if you are in a lobby and you immediately see the champ squad as a triple stack of sweaters, like that can be pretty discouraging for people to think they might have like already lost the match. So there's sort of like, how much do we want to lean into broadcasting that, or where do we want to broadcast that? Like maybe you only broadcast that in ranked versus casual. Like maybe you have a separate player card for arenas or the BR. Like
That's a great idea.
who knows? But it's definitely something we thought about. And like as far as ranked rewards go, like I'm sure it's something that will only get better with time. It's not something I have a massive say in, but like I have sort of brainstormed and thought about improvements we could just make for badges and frames, and sort of leaning into that like identity as an Apex player, either as a pub stomper or a ranked grinder or an arenas specialist. Like there's so many things you can do there for sure that I think we can improve upon. It just takes some time.
Anything developing on changing the aim assist levels of console to PC or vice versa? How that feels? Obviously that shit is not allowed in competitive, and I think there's obvious fucking reasons it's not allowed in competitive. Now, with that being said, it's allowed in ranked. Just to furthermore it, you guys did release something recently that allows the player to change their aim assist from the console level to the PC level, which may actually open up that gateway into them being allowed to play competitive if they choose to. Now, however, what has been the reason in giving them that option and not just full on changing it so that when crossplay is a more finalized and full and awesome thing, no player has to worry about getting fucking killed by the Terminator in a lazy boy 45 feet from a screen who has one eye shut,
Yeah, well, I'm glad you guys brought this up because, yeah, the whole aim assist debate, that's a juicy one.
Crazy one.
That, I'll say as much as I can on that front. Like, we're not as designers, like we don't like to think of using aim assist as like a balancing mechanic, or the fact that you can't, like the fact that controller sucks from range, but they have the advantage up close, or that they can't move on death boxes, but M and K can tap strafe or whatever else. Like we would like that to be sort of as neat and even keeled as it can be. But alas, that's not the case. Like these differences exist with different peripherals, and it can be improved. So on the data front, like, I was curious, like, how problematic are controllers in PC lobbies? Like,
is there a noticeable difference between a console player and a PC controller player? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the answer is not as it's not what you might want to hear or might expect. Granted, most of the data we're looking at, and I was looking at it broken up by MMR, so I was looking at bottom 50%, 25%, up to the top percent of players, and it was actually weird. And I'm still trying to figure out like the root cause of this is that across engagements of different ranges, like consoles are definitely most competitive, like in that sweet spot range. But it never eclipses 50%, and it actually that disparity becomes bigger as the MMR goes up. This is not to discredit or discount like your guys' feeling as pro players. And I think it's tricky. Like if we could go back to day one and just ship it all with one aim assist value, like that would help a lot in sort of how we resolve this. Because like I don't think there's an easy answer to.
Yeah, if you change it for console, you're fucked. If you change it for PC, you're fucked. Because if you put aim assist on 0.6, you're going to see your entire competitive scene become controllers. M&K will get evaporated. But if you change aim assist on console, which is the vast majority of your casual scene, dude, you're going to be getting the craziest of DMs.
Yeah. So like it's something we've had aim assist discussions for sure. It's something that we want to improve on and we want to like iterate on. But like that being said, I do think just setting that lower aim assist value for PC lobbies for the competitive environment, and the fact that we can have both M&K and controller like exist relatively harmoniously is like I was kind of surprised that it like went so like it's so good for a first pass because like this improvements will be made, but the fact that you can have both controller players and M&K players succeed at that level is like cool. Like it's cool to see. And I think for controller players, which are the vast majority of Apex players, like that is definitely something that like is nice for them to see as a possible gateway or door to comp. But yeah, it can be improved, and your complaints are not invalid by any means.
Of all the balance changes that you have shipped or your team has shipped, what caused the biggest shift that you did not expect? A cool little question.
I don't know. That's a good question. I remember. I think part of the reason I got this job was because right around time I was interviewing was when Respawn buffed the burst weapons. They buffed the Hemlock burst. They buffed the Prowler burst, and they lowered the TTK. And that all happened at once. And I was like, "Whoa, that's a lot. That's a lot of things that will shift how the game feels at a like deep level." So I think, like, kind of speaking on their behalf, like internally, I don't think they sort of realized the
crazy
effect that would have, or
on the
feedback that would have. Yeah, the TTK, and buffing the burst weapons in the way that they did in the same package, just like exacerbated it a bit. So that's the first one that came to mind, just because it was like right around time I was getting brought on. But nothing jumps out to me. We were a lot of us were pretty concerned with Valk's tuning along, like across release. We thought, people are thinking, oh, what are we gonna have to hotfix? Like what's gonna be busted? And the more that I play tested her up into release, I was like, I actually think she'll be in an okay spot. Like she was in a good spot, and there were iterations of her in playtest where she was busted with the jetpack. But I think she released like in an awesome spot, and definitely kudos to Klein for that.
I want to.
Yeah, as much as it sucks to admit, I'll let you ask your question in a second. But Klein is a lot. Oh God, bro, I'm about to get hate for this. But Klein is a lot smarter than people realize. Man, dude, I have no problem saying that dude is a fucking idiot on social media sometimes, and I have no problem saying that. But he's also responsible for a lot of the good things that have happened in the game. And yes, he's an outspoken moron sometimes on Twitter, but so am I, and so are you, probably, if you're watching. So
we all are.
He's that's Klein, dude. He does a lot of good. Kind of an idiot sometimes. All right, go ahead with your question.
I wanted to, you mentioned TTK, right? And that change was reverted, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
What goes into making a decision to revert something?
The game is on fire.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just when something is met differently than you'd expect. It definitely makes you take a step back and think, huh, well, there's some disconnect here. And like while we have pride in sort of our work and our in how we think about the game, sometimes we're wrong. And there's this sort of trade-off of like how much do you work on the game or how much do you push for the game that you want to build versus the game that the players play. And ultimately I'm sort of in the camp that like, the players I hate to say this. But the players are always right. Um, the like if the players have feedback, if that feedback and the impressions align with the data, and we're seeing drops in sort of play rate in a certain mode or on a certain map or with a certain weapon, like if that comes to fruition through the stats, that's more than enough for us to verify our concerns of like, oh, we missed the mark here. Let's make an adjustment.
Nice.
Has it ever been brought up because Bloodhound's lore? I mean, you guys talk about how like you want to be true to the characters and their background. You ever thought about how like he's a hunter, he's a tracker? That was his original launch, the whole 9 yards. Have you ever guys thought about maybe a potential change to his skin or his ultimate? While he can offer still a lot to the team, maybe being something more like hands-on, more aggressive, and not so free of an easy help. Something similar to like a hunter, where it's like if he shoots someone, he's allowed to ult and have like wall hacks on that specific individual for like maybe 10 seconds or something. And that one individual is like perma wall hack for like 10 seconds, which really would enable that idea of like being a hunter, being a tracker, would give his team that information on that one player, but also wouldn't be as detrimental to a whole team fight. It wouldn't stall entire team fights like the 35 seconds. And then on top of that, it forces him to be involved before the fight starts rather than that full free game of just, oh, I can scan, I'm popping ult now. I haven't even shot my gun, but we know everything going on type deal that I think even the casual scene is a little bit crazy. Even though they may not acknowledge it, they probably still love to scan and abuse that.
Yeah, I mean, Bloodhound's a fan
Oh,
favorite.
great idea.
I think. Well, I think you're 100% right. Like when we're looking at like changes, like the ones that we consider more than others is just like, first of all, is this in theme with the design and with the character? Like Bloodhound is this sort of hunter, and I know, the sort of idea is you use the passive to come up on a fight scene, and you do this big scan, and you get information, you can act on that. However, like the passive, like the fantasy's so cool. I don't know if it's fully realized, like the whole tracking your steps thing. Like, I mean, for a lot of players, I don't know how often they're like using that to go find victims or whatever. And then yeah, when Bloodhound goes sicko mode with the ult, like I think it probably drifts a bit away from that fantasy of rolling up on the scene. And there is this great sort of, I mean, as a Bloodhound, it can feel pretty empowering to be just zipping through and scanning people and getting, crazy with the crazy movement capabilities. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's being leaned into too hard or whatever, but I do like you bringing up sort of
Do you
being
think
true to
that
the
his
characters.
current kit? Do you think his current kit fits with his lore of being a hunter and tracker? Because I didn't think about it until this very second. His current kit does not line up with hunter tracker. It does
Yeah,
not.
yeah. I think the passive absolutely like I like want to improve that in some way. And then personally, like with my thinking about the ult, like yeah, I personally don't think it aligns with that. Um, but these are things that we talk about in our balance meetings, and we have sort of back and forth on this. And if we didn't have disagreement, I think within the design team, I think we'd be doing something wrong. Like it only shows that we're passionate about bettering the game and coming at it from different perspectives, which I think is critical for sort of keeping the game healthy as a whole.
No.
Um,
Okay, keep going.
yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of all. That's kind of all I have to say on that front. Like we, I think it's cool that we disagree often in our team meetings because we have that level of respect for each other's sort of expertise. both as designers and players of like varying skill levels. Like I value feedback from them, and I think my teammates value feedback from me. Yeah. So when people think about Apex like crumbling because of the state of the meta or whatnot, just like keep in mind these are temporary things, and we play the game the same as
A
you.
lot,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Fuck, I had a good question. I forgot a little bit. Maybe I'll have some.
I see an interesting question here. In your eyes, is there anything that you think is like the perfect balance? Is that possible?
I think Bangalore's like, I think she's just a beautifully well designed character for what Apex has to offer when it comes to how her kit pertains to movement and positioning, um, and like her tactical's relatively agnostic. Like you have control as a player over how you use it, but you have to be smart about it because it can hurt you as much as it can help you in certain scenarios. Uh, I think she's just yeah, I think she's awesome. I think she's like the pinnacle of balance in Apex, and I would think the same for something like the 301 or some just signature AR. Um, Maybe the wingman back in the day, but I think there's some weapons that have sort of outclassed that. But yeah, as far as character is concerned, I love Bangalore from a balance perspective, and I love the
I
sort of
agree with that.
good old reliable 301.
I think I truly do think she's in a great spot. I think just the overtuned legends support how well-rounded she truly is, and the horrible legends help show you that like this person's in a great spot. I think you were onto something earlier. Oh fuck, that's what I was saying. I think you were onto something earlier with the Rampart thing. How like her ultimate's what holding her back from potentially a competitive and high-level position. This was my question earlier. You talked about it earlier, and I just want to like go a little bit deeper into it. How like you dropped the bow strong. You guys knew that bitch was bussing, right? And that was the idea to get the feedback. Now you also dropped Fuse very weak, right? Knowing that whatever, maybe you didn't know it was weak, but motherfucker was weak, right? And you now know a Spitfire Eva 8, you said, that you're probably not going to get that crazy feedback until you overtune him into fucking Narnia, right? Now, with that being said, as a whole and a vague question, you can go deeper into it if you choose to. You guys kind of sort of regret bringing in a character like Fuse who offers all these explosions and crazy devastating abilities because finding that fine area where he's not too strong for a high level player, but also not too weak for the low level players is unexplainably difficult. It's going to be 10 times more difficult with a deadly character like Fuse than, let's say, a very supported character like Lifeline. Do you guys regret bringing that in? Because finding that niche spot, you're going to be getting fucking you're gonna be losing sleep over that one if you ever try to go too deep into it.
Yeah, this is a good one to touch on because Klein has talked about this before in different interviews, but I think, and I sort of agree with him here, like we just sort of missed the mark on Fuse from the get go in sort of trying to fit this bombastics expert into the Apex space in a game where we don't want it to be ability legends. Damage dealing abilities are scary, like they're scary,
Yeah.
and that's probably why he shipped weak because we were pretty cautious about like we don't want this guy to be insane with the amount of damage he can do with his abilities. I think Klein had actually mentioned in development at one point, Fuse ult was just this massive freaking mortar that just like fell down the same sort of area of effect, and it just was a bomb that just did like 150 damage or something. And it didn't take long for us. This is before my time, but for them to realize like, oh, that's not good. That's bad. There's not much.
Yeah, no.
There's not much
Gotta.
counterplay around getting blown up by a freaking mortar.
Fucking mortar.
Um, so yeah, I think going back, I think Fuse to be approached differently from the get go. But I don't think he's. I think it's salvageable. I think there's things we can do.
I think it's gonna
For
be
good old
easy
Fusey.
to honestly, this is very ignorant for me to say, and I'm still gonna say it too deep, but I don't think it'll be as hard as you guys and the casual and pro player scene think it's going to be to balance out Fuse. I think you guys have a lot more room than you guys think using his lore and his what he's supposed to be in reworking his abilities into something that's useful, but also not the craziest thing we've ever seen when it comes to
Yeah.
mortars or that dude pulling out like a fucking RPG. the things we don't need. Now, I think you guys have a lot of
That'd be
room with
epic.
his lore since he's so new and so many things to work with. I think it won't be as hard as everyone's thinking to find that nice balance, but also not giving him a fucking mortar.
Yeah, I have faith for Fusey.
That's sick. God, there's so many troll fucking questions, bro. There's just so many ignorant dickheads, bro.
Yeah.
I would hate to live in your shoes. I made a roster change not too long ago, and
Yeah.
I felt like people wanted to like kill me over it, bro. It's crazy. I couldn't imagine what happens when you launch a season and we can't play for 2 hours.
Oh man, yeah. There's a lot of anxiety, but it's part of the job.
No, absolutely.
I mean, I've gone through all the questions. I even went on Reddit. There was a Reddit thread with some too.
No way.
Yeah,
you're able to-
I know Zach's stance on comp Reddit.
Oh yeah.
It's an
How do you know
improving
my
relationship.
stance?
It's improving.
I follow Apex, dude. I'm
Oh yeah.
tuning into streams. I'm tuning in.
I got a VIP, so I know when your dumbass is watching.
Hell yeah.
Word on the
I know
street.
Josh is in your stream all the time.
He
And I
be
know you give
coming
him
in
shit.
talking shit. I
Yeah, you
love
gotta
Josh
shit.
so much, man. Because
Yeah, we
listen,
love Josh
listen.
too.
And this is selfish because it's a podcast. We should be talking about everything. And I'm gonna talk about myself. So fucking deal with it. You're not on the show, whoever you are. Man, I love Josh because he's one of the very few devs that are willing to talk to people in the community and understand them without just taking the upfront judgment. And I think it's valuable because one, it's very rare that any of you guys have the time to meet anyone in the scene. I think it's hard to get the time to introduce yourself or find out who they truly are or whatever. It's hard to find that time as is. And then on top of that, it could be a waste of your time if that dude's a fucking dickhead, right? Be a major waste of your time, as is. But one of the big reasons I absolutely love Josh is that Josh truly understands that when I'm talking shit on Twitter, it isn't because I fucking want to see you burn, Jay. It's just because I love the game just as much as you. And I want to see the game succeed. Like, if I had it in my power to, make changes and, be direct with the game or, learn coding and do it, on my off time, I would probably take advantage of it just because I care that much about seeing it successful. And Josh truly understands that specifically about me. I know there's been certain people in the dev team and people that have been like, no, that Zach dude's an asshole and he's just some outspoken, ignorant, young piece of shit. And the reality is I just care as much as you guys. And I love playing the game and I want to see it succeed. So when it's struggling the way it is, my negativity is because I'm in love with it, dude. I care about it just as much as you guys. And I really appreciate that Josh went out of his way to meet so many pro players and content creators and develop this bond. And he's capable of understanding that and defending some people and saying, yeah, no, that guy is a dickhead for other people. I think Josh is super valuable for the community.
Yeah, Josh is great, and I'm eager to. When COVID is all said and done, just to be back with the dev team and just to have opportunities to interact with the pro scene and everyone else. I'd love to sort of foster that connection and lean into that. My DMs are always open. My Twitter's always open. I will never block anyone unless they try to kill me. And yeah, and even when I'm solo queuing in games, as long as the first thing people say, they see I'm a dev, they're like, bro, can you get me an heirloom? It's like, guys, just don't, just come on.
Have you ever thought about taking the badge off because of the dumb shit you get?
Yeah.
Oh god.
I know Kool-Aid. So Red Kool-Aid's another dev. He's much more of a ranked grinder than I. He grinds ranked in console lobbies, and he takes his dev badge off all the time because you
just exposed that dude.
The harassment he gets.
Forever.
Yeah. But if you know Red Kool-Aid, in the console community, yeah, that guy's cracked. He's an environment artist for us, and he's definitely a good resource. I'm always talking with him about feedback on changes we're batting around. So
now here's the real question: do you get free heirlooms?
They definitely have unlocked accounts.
We get hooked up. We get hooked up pretty nicely for.
What about friends and family?
Awesome. We do have a couple. We do have a couple friends and family.
Really? Oh, okay. That's kind of cool.
Maybe not with the heirlooms, but yeah, we can give them some crafting medals and everything.
Nice.
Occasionally.
That's pretty cool. I really like that. I think
here comes awesome. Your long lost cousin. Knocking on your door.
Everyone hit me up in the DMs, I'll get you that free heirloom.
No. Here's the big one. You asked the question, so what are your thoughts on for the established pro scene, people getting unlocked accounts so they can show off the skins and promote it more, so that there's a higher chance of the casual scene who watches us, because a lot more of the base really does watch people like Hal. If that dude didn't have to buy every goddamn thing and we had these unlocked accounts, we could show off a lot more, because there's a lot of pro players, because of COVID, who simply just can't afford it. That's just the truth. The money is just not there in the Apex scene out behind the championship, right? That's just a fact. It really is. And with that being said, I think having unlocked accounts for these more established orgs that you guys are already working with, that you guys have these agreements with, whatever it may be, I don't know. I think that'd definitely be an interesting route to see if you guys could actually profit off of that, because you're probably not losing much money in giving 24 players, I'd imagine. Like, there's only so many tier 1 works, or so many works that you guys directly work with. Probably don't lose much money in taking 24 players away that buy a lot of shit. And they'd probably hit a lot more eyes with the different things than people realize. And maybe you guys just simply don't give a fuck, because the vast majority of us that are on tier 1 orgs can afford the skins and we're buying them anyway. So it's like a fuck you. You're going to buy them anyway. Might be that.
Yeah, I don't know. This is the world of MTX, which I couldn't care less about. Like, and me personally, just I like Apex for Apex, and I don't know. I'm personally not too concerned about cosmetics. It's not my job to be. But
that's the guy with everything, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I had to, man. Someone was gonna say it if I didn't, so just be glad it was me.
You're not wrong.
I don't really have anything. A lot of my questions at this point are just going to be more selfish ones pertaining to like me or the pro scene. And I know the casual scene is going to be up in flames if they get to this point. Like, why is he so selfish? Why won't he answer my question? Why didn't Fuse become the best legend in the game? This is, so I feel bad asking questions that like pertain to me at TFG.
Dude, I think you're good. We're hour 46 minutes in. You could ask whatever you want, man.
Damn, it's been that long.
Oh yeah, time flies.
Dang.
I'm trying to think, man. I can only think of so many things. I feel like we touched on a lot.
Would you trade your job for any other? Or are you just madly in love with what you do?
I'm so lucky, man. I don't think I would. This is a dream job for me for sure.
That's awesome.
And the fact that just I can sort of marry a passion with income, can't complain.
Oh yeah, we're gonna ask that one off recording for sure. Oh god. Oh man. Do you think I don't know. I feel like I've touched on so much. I feel like I've got to talk about Revenant. I've got to give some good ideas about Gibby and complain about how Gibby meta has been so long. Even meta is really strong. Bloodhound is absolutely brain dead and stupid, and you guys totally understand that. And you guys are working towards a fix, or not necessarily a fix, but you guys are looking to tweaking things when it comes to Revenant, tweaking things when it comes to Gibby, maybe tweaking things when it comes to Bloodhound. I've gotten to touch on so many things pertaining to the competitive aspect of the game and the casual aspect of the game. I think we're at like a really good point, but I know the second that you leave the call, I'm going to come up with a crazy question. I was like, fuck. That's just how it works. I think we've gotten to touch on so much. I'm glad that you were willing to do this. So first off, thank you for doing this, because I opened it up with talking about transparency. And I think that is one of the biggest things that we struggle with in the Apex community is on your guys' behalf and on ours, is that the small issues in Apex typically really aren't a big deal, because we so commonly have major issues, right? And that's true. Every season, our seasons are dropping and unplayable. We're getting the bow, which makes the game like, oh, if you have a bow, you win. If you don't have a bow, you lose type deal. We're running into so many different moments where we're having big problems that I think the transparency of like, yes, we're acknowledging this shit is on sicko mode, we're going to look into it, is a really, really, really big deal. And I think this is a great, not first step, but I think this is a huge step in like other devs, excluding you and including you, being more comfortable with being more outspoken on certain things where they're a little bit more safe. I think safe is a good word to use, because going out on Twitter and is like lighting a fire for you, even if you're talking about something that you know you're right about, right? People are just going to harass you, give me an heirloom type deal. Whereas you come on a podcast, you know me and him aren't here to harass you. We're trying to be as productive and transparent with the communities as possible. I think this is a huge step in other devs feeling more comfortable in talking about like their side of things. I know you got map makers. I know you got not live balance team people that are working 3 seasons ahead, maybe. You never know. So I think this is awesome. I'm really glad that you said yes. And think this is huge.
Yeah, no, guys, I'm serious. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I always sort of give people the benefit of the doubt, and knowing that like we're all acting in good faith here. We all share the same love for the game. Like
100%.
I work on the game. I play the game every day. I feel the same struggles. I have the same highs and lows as anyone else. So yeah, I'm happy that you guys have me on.
I mean, obviously nothing. I'm not going to put anything in stone right now, but I would love to see someone like you who works on the live balance, who probably has a lot of say in what needs to be patched, what doesn't need to be patched, since you see so many statistics and you're on the live team, right? I think it'd be really cool to see you on the show, like, or someone in your workspace on the show every single time a patch gets released, because I mean, there really aren't that many. There's the season, and then there's the half, and then that's really it. So I think it'd be really cool if we made this a more regular thing, TFG, where we had someone on that can give insight on the patch notes, why they did things, the whole 9 yards.
100%.
I think that'd be really cool, just for transparency and for the sake of them. I mean, they get to talk about why they did it. And I'm sure there's some fun in it. There's some dickery behind the scenes that you guys have fun with. You say you were playing who yesterday? Wattson. Playing Wattson yesterday.
Yeah, in our play test too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we have like the dev streams that we talk about it briefly. And that nerds out a bit more into like design decisions that we made, more than just like the little patch note. So we do have the dev streams, but yeah, 100%. I think there absolutely could be opportunities for more stuff like this.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Guys.
Great.
I'm good.
Well, yeah, I think we could wrap it up then. One final thank you to everybody who watched up until this point. You guys are the true fans. We love you all so much. And yeah, thanks again for coming. Oh, what is it?
Question for me and you. I have been getting absolutely harassed in my Twitch chat about this coming to Spotify. Can you tell them anything about that?
I have been getting a lot.
You have for that? I don't fucking know. I don't work on that. I don't even know how you end up on Spotify, bro. The only thing I know about Spotify is that Polo G's got some dope music on that bitch. So what the hell is going on with Spotify? So we can get that.
We're working on expanding the podcast, guys. We got some really cool things coming. We're still in our very early stages, so just give it a little bit more time. But I see this podcast going really far. Me and Zach, we're pretty passionate about it. We're going to be here every single week, sometimes multiple times a week, giving you guys episodes. So just stick with us, and we promise, big things coming. You'll be able to watch in multiple areas soon.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and that's a good note to end it. Again, thank you for coming on board, Jay. You killed it. Zach, you're a beast as always, and that's it. We'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.
See you guys.